Hello, dear learners. This is again a very important video of the students project series. So we are covering UG, PG, Masters, MPhil, and a few points which are very important for the PhD students also. So this is lecture 4, and I will be discussing in this lecture thoroughly about how to connect your research title, research gaps, questions, objectives, and hypotheses. I will also cover the theoretical model and conceptual model briefly. So, before I start, I would highly recommend you to listen to my videos of how to decide a topic and title for the research, which is the first video of this series. Then, the second video is layout of the entire project. Briefly, I have explained all the components of the layout. I have given the links of all these videos in the description of this video as well. Then next video is about the uh, literature review writing, which is third lecture. It is divided into two parts because it was a bigger one. So it is in two parts, and this is the fourth one, in which very important, I must say, the most important part I am covering, in which most of the PG students, MPhil students, or PhD students have a doubt. First of all, let us very briefly understand what is a research gap. So, after having done the literature review, we come across the research gaps. I will not explain each one, rather, you can simply, I'll give you the link where the description is given. But research gap is something that has not been studied, something which has not been studied by the other researchers. So it is a very difficult term. You first go the entire literature review, then you make some tables, then you draw some conclusions, and there is no guarantee that 50, 100, 200 papers you have studied. So you can firmly say that the study has not been conducted in on these parameters and like. So when we talk about the research gaps, there are seven gaps like evidence gaps. Some facts are there, some conclusions are there, but evidences are not there. So you conduct a research. Knowledge gap. Some topics have not been covered in the literature. Practical knowledge conflict gap. So theoretical knowledge says something else, practical knowledge says something else. So you have to fulfill fill that gap. So you conduct a study. Empirical gap. Some knowledge is there, some findings are there, but they are not empirically supported. They are not supported with the data that has been collected from the experience, direct experience of the prospects or respondents. Then you conduct a study. Theoretical gap. There is some linkages between two theories or two variables of one theory are not established. So you can conduct a study. Methodological gap and population gap. So I'm not explaining again in detail, so that to keep this video short and more useful for all of you. Coming directly to certain examples. So practically we will understand this phenomena. So when we talk about the research gaps, I have simplified it. Simplified like conducting empirical study in the areas where such studies have not been conducted. Suppose you find some theoretical study on, say, motivation, or some study on communication, or nowadays a lot of new things are coming up like benefits of AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality. Everybody talks about the benefits, but a very less empirical studies have been conducted. So you can conduct a study in maybe AR and VR in school education, or kids education, or maybe in a retail apparel store. This is the example that I have taken in my lecture also. Extending the existing list of independent variables. So independent variables, even dependent variables. Extending the list means, suppose brand equity. So if we refer to Acker, David Acker, there are five parameters of brand equity, five parameters influence brand equity. You can extend this model. You can add two, three new parameters, or you can add antecedents to the existing parameters. Okay. So like brand awareness is a parameter. You can add an antecedent like you can add colors, jingles, appeals to brand awareness. So then colors, appeals, etc. leads to brand awareness leads to brand loyalty. Or you can add all together a new independent variable along with those five variables. There may be 6, 7, 8, 10 variables to your study. So extending the list, it is a very simple thing. Like we call it extension of a theory actually. Technically we call it you are extending a theory. Adding the antecedents I have already explained. Conducting study in a new context, new country, new culture, new demographics. Some study has been done on kids, you are studying it on women, working women. Okay, comparing the variables or context. When such a comparison is not present, you are comparing a rural area with a semi-urban area with respect to the brand consciousness. An area which is surrounded by which is surrounded by say metro cities, a village in a metro cities, like we take example of Noida. There are many villages in the Noida itself, between two sectors. So their cultural, their knowledge of brands will be different from the knowledge of a typical villager whose village is not near to the metro city. So these are some of the things that you have to do some brainstorming to find out, to justify your research gap. Okay, then what else can be there? Testing, mediating, or moderating. This is an advanced thing for UG/PG students, but for PhD students, it is very important to test some mediating and moderating roles to justify that they are contributing to the existing body of knowledge. Coming to this research gap and title. Now, what is the relationship of research gap and title of your study? See, there may be 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 or 1000 of research gaps in the existing literature because all has not been studied. This I have covered in my first video also. So what you do? You actually do what? You actually find the what kind of research gaps I can address. Like before I explain this slide, I go to the next slide. Like this one, suppose we talk about this practical example and then I'll go back to that previous slide. Now this is a paper of one of my friends, Kumar Ashish. He's working with Jaipuria Institute, a very good friend of mine, and he has published this wonderful paper which is published in A category journal, Scopus SSCI journal, Indian Journal of International Journal of Bank Marketing. You can see the DOI IJBM, and a very neatly designed topic, to continue or not to continue, a structural analysis of antecedents of mobile payment system in India. Now you should not be worried to see this topic has a lot of technical words. Forget about structural analysis because it is structural equation modeling. It's a statistical technique, so leave it for now, and go to antecedents of mobile payment system. Antecedents of mobile payment system and continue or not to continue. It means that we are testing whether consumer wants to continue with the mobile payment system in India or not. Okay, and what are the antecedents of the same? If consumer wants to continue, why consumer wants to continue the mobile payment systems? Okay, so then we come to like dependent and independent variable story. Will go to the gap. Now, how the authors of the paper, just the paper that I have just shown, why the authors of this paper has designed that topic. Now, what comes first? The research gaps come first from literature, then we design a title. Okay, so how did they design this title? They first conducted a literature review. They found that, and they have written it in the paper itself, it has been written, there are hardly any empirical studies carried out. Like this is the beginning. Many research studies have investigated the willingness of individuals to adopt novel technology in different frameworks. There are hardly any empirical studies carried out to analyze the antecedents of users' continuance intention to use MPS. This research tries to analyze users' continuance intention to use MPS mobile payment system in India. Very simple. That there are many studies which have studied the antecedents of users' continuance for new technology, like basically adoption of new technology, but not in the context of mobile payment system. So this is the novelty of this research, right? And how do you say this? Why do you say this? And what makes you confident to say this? That you have studied the literature, you have studied the previous papers. So it's a beautiful example. How do you write the research gap, and then you design your topic. Coming to the next part is independent and dependent variables. This is very important before you design your objectives. First, check out the dependent and independent both types of variables. If we go to the literature, research gap, these all are connected with each other. Everything is connected with each other. I'll show you. Now, what are the independent variables? Main one independent variable is the uh, factors that determine the basically what makes you to adopt a new technology. Why do we adopt a new technology? Because it makes our task easier. Okay, it takes less effort. So effort expectancy, perceived risk, it has a risk. If the perceived risk is high, my continuance will be low. Continuance to technology will be low. All right. Service quality, I have taken four variables which are directly connected to the model. There are antecedents of these variables also which I have not written. I will show you in the model. How do we find this? We find this in the literature itself. But in the literature itself, the author says that they are given in the context of technology adoption. Other technology adoption, maybe a mobile phone technology or maybe a internet banking, but not mobile payment system. This is the research gap. So the dependent variable is user's continuance intention, whether I will continue or not. Why I'll continue? If my attitude is positive, I will continue. If my effort expectancy is less, effort expectancy is less, effort is to be done, so I'll continue. My perceived risk is low, then I'll continue, and my service quality is high, then I will continue. So this is what the relationship is established with the dependent variable. Now this bulb shows ये दिमाग की जो बत्ती है, जो the light of that mind should lit. Now which statistical tool is to be applied? It is multiple regression analysis or structural equation modeling. We will talk thoroughly about the statistical techniques, selection and implementation in the later part of the lecture series. Now, this is what theoretical or conceptual framework of the study. A very minor difference is theoretical framework means an existing theory like TAM, TPB. I'll show you the some of the names. Is there? We are extending it. We are merging two theories, mixing two models, or we are testing it as it is in a new context. Is called theoretical framework. Conceptual framework is when we have our own variables collected from the literature and we are establishing the relationship. That is conceptual framework. No established theory. Now, what are the theories that generally our colleagues, professors test in the models? Is TPB, theory of planned behavior, technology acceptance model, ELB, elaboration likelihood model, stimulus organization response theory, SOAR, we call it stimulus response theory, unified theory of acceptance and use of technology, then Keller's CBB model, Acker's brand equity model that I have discussed in the beginning of this presentation. So coming to the next part, that is the conceptual framework. This is the framework that the authors of this paper have made. So I've taken only say four variables. Now you see that I'll take a pen and I will make a cutoff here. This and I need four very one, two, no, 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 no. This stage, this one. Okay. So I have taken basically this model. I have taken this as an example. Earlier, I have taken four variables. One is service quality, effort acceptance, expectancy, attitude, and perceived risk. Again, I repeat, this comes out from the existing literature. Okay, so you must, and some of the like effort acceptancy, perceived risk, they're part of some of the theories and all. So I'm not going into in depth that whether it is theoretical framework or a conceptual framework, but this is the framework I have taken as an example. I have not taken the antecedents of service quality like perceived trust and antecedents of satisfaction like convenience, perceived trust, and social value. Right. So I've not taken this these constituents and satisfaction and attitude relationship. So if a postgraduate student does this much of work, that is well enough. I mean, that is fair enough. Okay. Now we come to this slide I have already shown you the research questions from the same paper. What are the crucial drivers influencing users' continuous intention of using different MSPs in India? So first research question is, we want to know what are the crucial drivers. Okay, though we list them and then we test them. So if they are not significant, they're not the crucial drivers. This is what my first question is. And second is, what is the validity and predictive capability of the proposed model? Okay, so first I identify the variable, then I see that whether those variables significantly affect the dependent variable or not. So I go to this objectives of the study. Now from research questions, I devise the objectives of the study. Isn't it interesting? Because everything is connected. Your title comes out from the research gap. So gap, title, dependent, independent variables, right? First comes the dependent, independent variables may come first and then the title. Then you devise, then you make the research questions. After questions, you make what? The objective. So objective first is, what are the crucial drivers influencing users' continuous intentions of using different MSPs in India? Okay, so these authors have not written the objectives because in research papers generally the objectives are not written like this. Aim of the study is written and different forms we written, but in projects we write objectives like this. So objective 2 is to measure the influence of the factors determining users continuous intention to use MSP on their continuous intentions to use the MSPs. Whether I know this is, there is a an overlap and there is a repeat use of the same terms, but uh, sometimes we make the objectives like this also, so don't worry about that. So we want to measure whether the variables affect or not. They do not affect. So what is the validity and predictive capability? The objective should be, my objective should be little different. It is not matching exactly with the research question, but I am making it easy for at least for the PG students to understand. Like you can make an objective like this, right? We have more examples we'll discuss in detail. Now, if we see hypothesis of the study, they come out from your objectives and you elaborate them. So objective is broad and under one objective. So these hypotheses come out from the second objective where we are establishing a causal relationship. Now, if I go back, what are the crucial drivers influencing users' continuance intention of using the different MSPs in India? So crucial drivers I am finding, but I'm not establishing the causal relationship. I'm establishing the causal relationship in the research question 2, where I am measuring the predictive capability of the proposed model in the context of MPS. Predictive capability means causal relationship. That whether the antecedents of MSP continuance can predict the MSP continuance, right? So this is the predictive capability, causal relationship. So I come out with these hypotheses. Attitude has a positive influence on users' continuance, perceived risk has a positive influence, service quality has a positive influence, effort expectancy has a positive influence. So this is the way that we connect research gap, title, variables, independent dependent variables, research questions, objectives, hypothesis, and of course theoretical framework. So we'll take a practical example. I have taken a practical example of again the same exercise. I will repeat uh, with this example. Okay, this is a very simple example. So this is not a published paper. This is my example only. I have prepared it. Impact of perceived benefits of AR and VR. This is the title. In apparel retail stores on consumer purchase intention, an empirical study. So independent variables, a variable is perceived benefit of AR and VR. There may be many benefits, so individually we will test them. Dependent variable is consumer purchase intention. So research questions very simple. What are the various benefits of that consumers perceive with AR and VR implementation in a retail store? What is the impact of perceived benefits of AR and VR on consumer purchase intention? So one is just identifying the factors, and second is establishing the causal relationship, cause and effect relationship. So this slide shows the benefits of AR and VR. Like I already said that there may be many benefits. So we present them like this: real time experience, increased engagement. As I have already mentioned, that they come out from the literature itself. Ease and convenience, better brand association, attraction towards variety, novelty. When something new comes in the market, consumers have an excitement to go and check it out. So this is the conceptual framework of the study. The independent variables are on the left side, all the independent variables, and the dependent variable is on the right side, consumer purchase intention. So these are the objectives of the study: to identify the benefits that customers perceive. Consumers, we should use a consistent term, either consumer or customer, at all the places. Perceive with AR and VR implementation in a retail store. Next is to examine the impact of benefits of AR and VR implementation on consumer purchase intention. Simply stated two objectives and two objectives and four hypotheses. Now, because hypotheses come out from the second objective and benefits are five hypotheses, five in number, so there will be five hypotheses. Now, this is the hypothesis of the study. Like real-time experience positively influences the consumer purchase intention. Similarly, increased engagement, ease and convenience, better brand association, and attraction towards variety novelty seeking or variety novelty positively influence the consumer purchase intention. So this is the way that we connect our title, variables, theoretical framework, research questions, objectives, and hypothesis of the study. Hope you will like this video and you will appreciate, you will share this video with those who are struggling the in the understanding of these basic concepts in the research. If you have any suggestions, you can simply write me on my WhatsApp or my email ID. Thank you very much for watching this video. Wish you all the best.